You want to know which quarterbacks or tight ends to start or sit in week 8? We're going to go game by game, every matchup, and tell you who we like and who we don't. There are some players you really don't need to think about. These guys are no doubt must start. At quarterback, Pat Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and Tua Tagovailoa. At tight end, Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, Sam Laporta, and Dallas Goedert. Before we talk about the players, let me remind you that this is the perfect time to sign up for Underdog because they have a new customer special. And this week it's Josh Allen on Thursday night. If he just gets 1 yard, you win. You get that pick for free. You can combine it with any of the other picks, including the ones we talk about that we like best this week, and you can triple your money. Just make sure when you sign up for Underdog for the first time, you use promo code ENDGAME or just click on the link down below in the description, and that will get you a 100% deposit match up to $500 along with that new customer special and all the other specials that they run throughout the week. The Thursday night game is the Bucs at the Bills. If you have Josh Allen, you know you're starting him. Now on the other side in Tampa, Baker Mayfield is the quarterback there still. How do you feel about him in this road matchup?
I mean, you can't feel good. He hasn't put up great numbers the last 2 weeks at home. Now he's going on the road into Buffalo. Not starting Baker Mayfield.
Nah, I mean, I don't think he was ever getting into like single quarterback starting territory for me, unless it's a heavy bye week. But it's not because there's no team on bye this week, so you shouldn't need to start Mayfield unless it's super flex. And then Cade Otton's still the main guy there at tight end, but I don't think the numbers are there for fantasy.
No, definitely not there and definitely not starting him.
Now, on the other side, we got Dalton Kincaid, had his breakout game, if you want to call it that, last week. Does it continue, or do you think that might be kind of just a blip on the radar?
No, I think it continues. I think he's a great option this week. Dawson Knox just had wrist surgery. Kincaid was trending up. I think Kincaid is a good tight end start this week.
I think it's a very good start this week. Again, you're not going to start him over the known studs at tight end, but there's not that many of them, so a lot of you should be starting Kincaid this week. Texans at Panthers, both teams coming off of their bye and get to face each other in Carolina. Let's start with CJ Stroud, who's been rock solid. Does he continue it?
I think so. It's the Panthers, not a defense that worries me. I think CJ Stroud, a good start, even in 1 QB leagues.
Yeah, this is definitely a great spot for him. Like maybe you think he doesn't have the highest ceiling and they might not need to pass the ball that much this week, but sometimes having that solid floor is good enough. And then at tight end, Dalton Schultz has been coming on, caught a touchdown in 3 straight games, and the matchup is good. Is he also another strong start?
I think he is. He's been coming on. He's probably still out there on your waiver wire if you need a tight end. I like Dalton Schultz.
I did mention him as a strong pickup. If you're still streaming tight end or just need help at the position, go out and get him. And what about Bryce Young? Maybe figure something out in the week off?
Maybe the new OC kept calling the plays, but probably not. Not starting Bryce Young.
Yeah, the problem is here that it's just not some high-end talent there at wide receiver. It's still not going to be a super aggressive offense. He's only a low-end option in a 2 QB league. Rams at the Cowboys. Let's talk about Matt Stafford. After a really strong start, as soon as Cooper Kupp came back, it's an interesting thing. Stafford's numbers have kind of gone down. Do you think that he gets right in Dallas?
Yeah, this isn't a spot where you would expect him to get right. I mean, he's putting up decent numbers, but not exceptional numbers. I don't feel good about him in 1 QB leagues this week. I'm going to say 2 QB Superflex only.
I don't feel good about him at all. I know this Dallas defense isn't what it was early in the season. Obviously, losing Trevon Diggs and Van Der Esch, that hurts. But it's still a pretty good pass defense. And like I said, Stafford just has not been putting up the numbers. If you look at Matt Stafford's early line on Underdog, 260 passing yards. I'm going lower. He hasn't even hit that mark for the past 3 games. And now on the road against a pretty good defense, I'm not feeling it. Stafford has just not looked quite the same. I don't know why, but I think lower is the way to go here for sure. What about his tight end, Tyler Higbee?
No, can't do it. Even in, I was going to say maybe desperation, but not even desperation. Can't do it with Higbee.
Well, no, because now we got some other names at tight end that have become more interesting. Higbee really hasn't been interesting at all this year. And then what about Dak Prescott? Started to look a little better. They got a week off. Did they figure some things out? Is Dak back to being a good option at QB?
I think he is at home against the Rams. Doesn't scare me coming out of the bye. I think in one QB leagues, Dak is a good start.
I still want to see more out of this offense. I think he's okay. Like this matchup wasn't going to be as great as it was against the Chargers. The Rams are good, but not great pass defense. So I think he's playable, but not necessarily going to be one of my favorite picks at quarterback. And then Jake Ferguson is the tight end. Where does he rank as far as streaming candidates for you?
Yeah, he's always streamable. He gets targets. He gets red zone targets. I would prefer Schultz or Kincaid over him, but he's streamable.
I'm right there with you. I would rather pick up Schultz or Kincaid if I had an option. He's not the worst choice, so he can be streamed. And we got Vikings at the Packers. So Kirk Cousins now going on the road to Green Bay, team he's familiar with. How do you feel about him?
Yeah, I mean, look, he came through pretty well against the 49ers, but that was at home. This is on the road against Green Bay, tough secondary, no Justin Jefferson. 2 QB Superflex only for me.
Yeah, I mean, what we saw earlier in the season, you can't think of Kirk Cousins the same way for fantasy, so you nailed it, Superflex only. And then Jordan Love, I mean, he's getting to be on the verge of unstartable even in Superflex. Or is that too low?
I think that's too low, at least this week. It's another great matchup. I mean, it's the Vikings. He should have a good game, but man, one more bad game from Jordan Love, and we definitely have to be panicking. But this week, I'm going to say in Superflex or 2 QB only.
Well, that's a good point. Maybe the fact that it's at home against the Vikings makes him startable, but not in a single QB league. Gotta also worry, what if Christian Watson is not healthy? Superflex, but that's it. And then what about Luke Musgrave? You know, he left last week's game early with a concussion after that hit to the head. If he comes back and plays, is he playable?
Yeah, I think he's streamable, kind of like right there with Jake Ferguson. He'll get you some points at least. Don't prefer him like with Schultz and Kincaid again, but he's streamable.
Again, he's kind of lumped there together with the streaming candidates. You never quite know what he's going to do. There is some upside, but there's also some risk here. So streaming if you need him. Saints taking on the Colts. This is in Indianapolis. So Derek Carr, not looking too inspiring lately. Do you think that he can come back and put up some numbers?
Well, last year, I said on one of the Panic videos, I'm never recommending Derek Carr again. I said it again on this week's Panic video. And I'm just done. I'm done. I don't want to have to deal with it. I don't want to watch him yelling at people. No, I'm just done. Done.
Well, he didn't quite come through like I thought he would last week. I will say this, to get over 300 yards, the yardage has been there most weeks, and this isn't the worst defense, but still, I prefer some other streamers, so I would just say super flex. And then we got to talk Taysom Hill. Of course, you know the rule of Taysom. When you think he's going to do nothing, he'll do something this week. Does that mean he does nothing?
I mean, we said that last week, and he did something. He's involved. He's getting catches. He's getting carries. There's probably worse options this week. You can stream him.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. You just don't know what you're going to get with him. If they're going to get him touches, sure, he's got value. Although we have to mention, Juwan Johnson is supposed to come back at tight end. I don't even know if that matters. I don't know if Taysom Hill's a tight end in this offense. Sure, you can play him if you want to. And then Gardner Minshew came through with some numbers last week, surprisingly, against Cleveland. So can he do it against the Saints?
2 rushing touchdowns. I think that doubled his career high in rush. I don't know. Did not expect that. I'm not banking on that again. It's a tough matchup against the Saints. I can't do it. Not starting them.
Yeah, I really don't want to get sucked into last week's stats. He's at least looking playable, but that would, again, only be in a 2 QB league. Rematch of the Pats and the Dolphins. Let's start with Mac Jones. I mean, he's getting better, but still not good.
No, not good enough for me to trust him this week. There's no teams on bye. I am not starting Mac Jones.
I can't do it. There's just not enough upside here. With the passing game, he gives you no rushing upside. No to Mac Jones. What about Hunter Henry? I mean, he's still not even getting involved that much. Can we even consider him?
No, I can't. Not starting Hunter Henry.
And Mike Gesicki did catch a touchdown, the game-winning touchdown last week. Does that mean something or nothing?
Nah, it means probably a fluke, and now you're going to start him, and he's not going to catch a game-winning touchdown. I'm not starting Mike Gesicki.
I mean, unless you want to consider the revenge narrative, but it's not like he went off against Miami the first time they played, so let's just keep ignoring Mike Gesicki and say no. Jets at Giants. Zach Wilson, still the guy there in New York. Can he do something against the Giants defense?
Maybe he can do something, but not a lot. Not enough for fantasy. I'm not starting him.
No, there's still no world in which I'm considering Zach Wilson unless I'm super desperate in a super flex league. What about the tight end, Tyler Conklin? He's put up some decent numbers, decent matchup. Is it decent enough?
I mean, if you're in a really deep league and you're really desperate, but I think there are better options this week. And again, no teams on bye. So I'm going to mostly say no.
Yeah, I still think I can chase upside somewhere else. So I'll just say no to Conklin. Daniel Jones, maybe he comes back this week. Still not quite sure. If he does, is there any interest?
Now, against the Jets, no, hard pass on Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I mean, it would take a smash spot for me to even consider him in a deep league. This is a easy no for me. If it's Tyrod Taylor instead, I mean, he actually didn't look too bad last week, but it's the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say I do like him more than Daniel Jones, but still not enough to start him against the Jets.
Exactly. I'm still going to avoid if at all possible. What about Darren Waller now? Maybe it's because Tyrod Taylor was back there, but he had his best game as a Giant, scored a touchdown even. Are we in on Waller?
I mean, I think Darren Waller is one of these tight ends that, for the most part, you're just putting in your lineup, and whatever he gives you, that's what you get.
Yeah, look, I might consider a guy like a Kincaid or a Schultz over Waller, but for the most part, you probably just stick with Waller. Jaguars taking on the Steelers. So let's start with Trevor Lawrence. Where's he? Is he still just kind of barely there in the QB1 conversation?
Yeah, it doesn't have a huge ceiling right now, but it's the Steelers. It's a good matchup. I think he's still a good start, even in one QB leagues.
I will say I'm encouraged by the fact that he actually ran, even though he supposedly had a knee sprain. He got some rushing yards last week, but he's not putting up big games. And this Steelers defense has looked a little bit better each week. So I'm a little nervous on the road in Pittsburgh. I'm probably going to bench Trevor Lawrence if I can. Evan Engram, I feel like he's kind of like Waller. He just kind of take what he gives you.
Exactly. Put him in your lineup, take whatever you get.
And then Kenny Pickett, I mean, look, he's not putting up big numbers, but he is also looking better. Do you think maybe against this Jaguars defense he can do something?
I mean, maybe, but what are we really expecting? Like 250-ish yards? Maybe a touchdown? Like really uninspiring here. I'd prefer not to.
Even if Kenny Pickett has his best game of the season, I mean, how good is that really? So I will say he's not the worst streaming candidate, but also there's nobody on bye. You really shouldn't need to go this deep. So in a super flex league, though, I think I am putting him in my lineup. Then we got Falcons at the Titans. What about Desmond Ridder? We're going to get another week of road Ridder, but the Titans do have a pretty soft pass defense.
They do. And look, Desmond Ridder really should have had a nice game because he, should have scored a touchdown running the ball, but instead he got it stripped at the 1 yard line and was a turnover because that's what Desmond Ridder does. And it is on the road, but it is a good matchup. So I'll say super flex only.
Yeah, you can't ever go that high with him, right? What is the ceiling? Even when Bijan didn't play, it's not like they passed the ball that much more. I mean, he's a floor play in a 2 QB league. All right, now let's talk Kyle Pitts. This could be an interesting kind of sneaky smash spot for him. What do you think?
Yeah, Kyle Pitts, another guy right now from what I've seen recently. He's a tight end that if I have him, he's in my lineup. I'm taking whatever he gives me.
Yeah, few tight ends that have his kind of ceiling. So, yeah, if you have Pitts, definitely put him in there. And then I guess we have to talk about Jonnu Smith again. It seems like he's going to be a part of this passing attack going forward. So, you consider him also.
I mean, only in really deep leagues you can consider streaming him, but yeah, it'd have to be a deep league.
Yeah, I really don't want to start him. I just don't see enough path to relevance because they still have other guys. This team just doesn't pass enough. I don't know. I can't get myself to put him as a starting option. And then for Tennessee, This will be something to watch all week. Who is going to be the quarterback? It might be Malik Willis, or it might be the rookie Will Levis. Either way, are we even going to think about this?
No, not starting either.
Eagles facing the Commanders, this time in Washington. Sam Howell actually wasn't too bad last time he faced this defense. Can he do better at home?
I mean, maybe he might have to throw the ball 50 times. He'll probably get sacked 10 times, but he also might throw it 50 times. I mean, not my favorite play this week in a 1 QB league, but I think he's okay in a 2 QB superflex.
You might get sacked more than 10 times against this defense the way they're playing. Look, I'll say it again. I didn't love Howell last week because I didn't think they need to pass the ball that much against the Giants. They didn't. He might need to pass the ball a lot again this week, so I think he is someone you could consider if you need a quarterback. And then Logan Thomas. Eagles were bad against tight ends earlier in the year, but still, I feel it's a little desperate.
Yeah, desperation streaming option only.
Yeah, he's getting targeted, he's involved, but still, I'm going to look elsewhere. Browns taking on the Seahawks in Seattle. Here's another tricky situation. Is Deshaun Watson going to play? We have to ask this again. And if he does play, are you going to trust him?
No, it doesn't even matter. I mean, you run the risk of him taking a hit and then just never coming back in the game. Hasn't been good anyways. Probably should have had like 2 or 3 interceptions before he left that game. I don't even care. I'm not starting him.
That's the thing, is it when he's been playing in Cleveland, he just hasn't been that good. So what are we really expecting here? No, I don't care either. At this point, I'm just out on Watson. So if we get PJ Walker again, where do you put him? I mean, he's actually leading the team to wins, but what about your fantasy team?
Yeah, I think I said this a couple weeks ago. He's leading the team to wins, but not going to lead your fantasy team to wins. I'm not starting him.
Nah, not a high enough ceiling. Not a great place to play in Seattle either. So where does that leave the tight end David Njoku?
Yeah, I can't feel good about Njoku. I mean, streaming option in deep leagues only.
Yeah, he's not the worst in terms of giving you some points, but where's the upside really? I think that he's only a desperation play if you're in a deep league. Geno Smith did have himself a pretty good game. That was against Arizona. Now he gets to face the Browns defense, though.
Yeah, can't feel great about him this week, but really he's, pretty safe, so I'll put him in the 2 QB superflex only.
There you go. I think safe enough, but a little worried that he's not going to come through with too many touchdowns here. So, yeah, in a single QB format, I'd prefer to stay away. Next, we got Ravens at the Cardinals. Kyler Murray, is back at practice. Still might be a week away, but what if he's activated for week 8? Are you throwing me in your lineup?
No, it's not a great matchup, first of all. And second of all, coming off of injury, ACL, not ready to put him in my lineup yet.
I don't expect him to play. Even if he does, I expect him to be limited. And the main thing is they are not going to have him running around and doing these design runs. It's just way too much risk here. So even if he plays, don't get too excited. Just keep him on your bench. If we get another week of Josh Dobbs, I mean, is he even in consideration anymore?
Yeah, no, I don't even know if I could do it in a 2 QB superflex. I mean, he did run a little bit last week, which was nice, but this is a tough matchup on the road. Not going to do it this week.
Yeah, it feels like in terms of passing efficiency, just keeps going downhill. If not for the fact that he was running and getting in the end zone, I mean, he'd be hurting you in fantasy, so I think you just have to stay away. And I know I mentioned Trey McBride. I like him long term, but right now he's a hard no for this week.
Yeah, hard no to Trey McBride.
The Chiefs taking on the Broncos once again. Only got to talk about here is Russell Wilson. What do you think he can do?
Yeah, I liked him a couple weeks ago when they played as a streaming option, and he wasn't very good. So, yeah, Superflex 2 QB only.
Yeah, it would take a great matchup for me to really be in on Russ, and this is not a great matchup, even though they're at home. This is just not a great passing offense, so I'll say only Superflex as well. Bengals are going to take on the 49ers at the Bay next week. Brock Purdy coming off kind of a down game. I mean, turned it over twice against Minnesota. Now he gets the Bengals. How are you feeling about him?
Yeah, I liked him last week. I thought he was a great streaming option. Man, maybe are we seeing Brock Purdy crashing back down to earth? This is 2 games in a row now. But look, it could be a shootout. He could need to throw the ball a lot. But man, I can't trust him in a 1 QB league now. Superflex, 2 QB only.
Ever since they blew out the Cowboys, it's been back-to-back letdowns for them. But he's still an option, but again, only in a Superflex league. Now, George Kittle didn't have himself too bad a game. Debo's still going to be out. Do we like Kittle this week?
Yeah, Kittle, another one of these tight ends. You got him, you start him, you take whatever you get.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're not benching him unless you happen to have somebody with much better upside, which you probably don't have unless you drafted 2 tight ends fairly early. Bears at the Chargers. We're going to see another start from Tyson Bagent, who acquitted himself pretty well in his debut. Can he do even better against the Chargers?
I mean, maybe, but just not a lot of upside here. I mean, just dinking and dunking. I know it's the Chargers, but I don't think they're going to ask him to do a whole lot. Not ready to start him yet.
No, I feel like what we're going to see is the same thing we're going to see, even though the defense is going to be a little softer here. Not that much softer, so only a deep option in a Superflex league. At tight end, Cole Kmet didn't even get a catch in Bagent's debut. So, I mean, does he get right?
I mean, what? He gets 1 catch? You cannot trust him this week. No way.
Nah, I think he's a hard no. And then Gerald Everett did leave last week with a quad injury. If he plays, do you play him?
Yeah, I mean, not my favorite tight end this week, but I think he's streamable. He can catch a touchdown. It's the Bears, so I think he's streamable.
Yeah, in a standard league, because what he's doing is occasionally catching a touchdown, but not getting a lot of yardage. Raiders at the Lions on Monday night. Will Jimmy Garoppolo be back? And if he is, would you play him in fantasy?
I mean, it's not a great matchup on the road against the Lions, but he's had some decent games. He's having to throw the ball a lot, so not a guy I want to play in a 1 QB league, but I think he's okay in a 2 QB Superflex.
Yeah, I mean, I can't go there in a 1 QB league probably ever with Jimmy Garoppolo, but I will say it could be kind of a sneaky start here, at least maybe a DFS play or something, because if they get down to the Lions, we could see him having to pass the ball a lot, so not the worst. If Jimmy Garoppolo is still not ready, we might see some more Brian Hoyer, or they might go back to Aiden O'Connell, who entered the game late last week. Either way,
no, on the road against the Lions, no way.
And the tight end, Michael Mayer, had been coming on. Didn't do anything last week. If Garoppolo comes back, does that make you more interested?
Actually makes me kind of less interested because he was doing his damage with Hoyer the week before. But I guess he's streamable in deep leagues. But I do wonder if that game was just kind of like an outlier.
Well, I like to say I'm interested because the Lions have actually been one of the most generous to tight ends. So I do think he is playable if Garoppolo plays, because I trust Garoppolo more than those backup quarterbacks. But it's still just a streaming option. And then got Jared Goff. Finally get the home cooking again. Are we in on Goff this week?
Gotta be in on Goff at home against the Raiders. Even in a 1 QB league, he's a good start.
Yeah, definitely. Should be in line for a top 10 quarterback finish. All right, now you know who should be in and out of your lineup at quarterback and tight end. But of course, we got you covered at running back, receiver as well, and everything else you need to win in Week 8. Check out this week's playlist right here.